to the Wine Nirvana podcast. Wine reviews for the average wine drinker. No pretense, no snobbery, no numerical ratings. And here's our host, Stephen Hawk.
Hello, seekers of wine, knowledge, and truth. Yes, it is I, Stephen Hawk, your wine guru. You know, the world of wine is quite big and extensive, with grapes grown all over the world and all kinds of wines made from them. So, predictably, there are a number of quite unusual and exotic wines out there. Many of them, I'm guessing, you are unfamiliar with. So, to get you up to speed, and as Monty Python liked to say, and now for something completely different. First, what I'm going to do is review wines from a number of countries, and then we'll get into an even deeper dive. So, from Argentina comes Charbonneau. This is a relatively obscure variety that originated in France, but today it's much more widely grown in Argentina, and there are some plantings in the Napa Valley as well. It is often mistaken for the more common Dolcetto grape, which hails from Italy, but genetic testing has proven that they are not related. This grape produces a dark wine that is high in both tannins and acidity. Austria offers Grüner Veltliner. I don't know what it is, but I love saying Grüner Veltliner. And this is Austria's most widely planted varietal. Gruner has a naturally high acidity, and this makes it one of the world's best food wines, especially with spicy cuisine, such as Thai food. It can be light and easy, or if made with lower yields and higher ripeness, it can have aromas of white flour and flavors of grapefruit, herbs, mineral, and fresh ground white pepper. The Austrian red varietal Blaufränkisch has characteristics of both Pinot Noir and Syrah. And it is sometimes incorrectly thought to be the same variety as Gamay, but no. The wines it produces are lighter styled reds, and these usually have plenty of acidity. The grape is grown in Germany as well, and there it is usually called Lemberger. Not surprisingly, plenty of unusual wines come from France. For instance, Gewürztraminer is thought to have originated in Italy's Alto Adige region, but it is now most widely and famously grown in Alsace, which is located between France and Germany. But it is planted throughout other nations in Europe, as well as California, Oregon, Washington, and New Zealand. So you can find Gewürz from all kinds of places. These wines are highly fragrant and crisp, and they feature flavors of spices such as clove and nutmeg. But you should drink a Gewürztraminer when they're young. They won't last past 5 years. Picpoul is normally grown in the Languedoc-Roussillon region of France, but it is also sometimes grown in Spain. And it's notable for its strikingly high acidity. One reason this grape isn't as well known as many others is because it's much more susceptible to fungus. This makes it difficult to grow, hard to bring to harvest, and of course producers don't like that. Regardless, there are 3 varieties of Picpoul: Picpoul Noir, which is Picpoul Black, Picpoul Gris, which is Picpoul Gray, and the most well-known variety, which is Picpoul Blanc or Picpoul White. The Picpoul Blanc is used both for blending and for varietal wines. The red wines produced from Picpoul Noir are high in alcohol, are often richly scented, but they have a very pale color, and this is made the grape more popular as a blending grape than as a grape to make varietal wines from. Val d'Aiguille also hails from the Languedoc-Roussillon region, and in the 1980s, this grape was widely planted in Napa Valley, but was the victim of poor cultivation and problems with disease. So its time in California quickly faded. However, recently some intrepid winemakers in the United States have been trying to save Val d'Aiguille's tarnished reputation. If it is properly cultivated and prepared, it makes a unique wine, one with distinct fruity notes and a sweet and sour flavor profile with a notably low alcohol content. Vouvray is the largest white wine appellation of the Anjou-Saumur-Touraine region of the Loire Valley. This wine is made from the Chenin Blanc grape, which has been grown in the region since the 4th century. It is capable of both dry still wines and elegant sparklers. From Georgia, yes, the country, not the state, the white varietal Ratsitelli can drink like a Pinot Grigio. It is also popping up in wines from New York's Finger Lakes region, and it's been adopted and planted there by the Dr. Constantin Franck winery. Mitzvan is like Sauvignon Blanc, but without the grassy notes that I find to be off-putting, but some people like that sort of thing. Kissy has been described as something between Chenin Blanc and Viognier on steroids. And finally, Georgia's Tavgeri is a workhorse there, and the best examples of it are often vinified as light red wines, similar to Beaujolais, with similar tangy, red-fruited, bright, and zesty characteristics. Assyrtiko hails from the Greek island of Santorini, where the volcanic soil there produces juicy wines that have a good body and high acidity, and these are particularly good with South Asian food. Malagusia is a rare variety grown mainly in Macedonia, and this has flavors of white peaches spritzed with just a little bit of jasmine. Also from Greece, Moschofilero is a pink gray-skinned grape, which is grown in central Peloponnese. It has a vibrant citrus acidity and attractive aromatics such as exotic spice and violet, and this is often made as a rosé. And we all should be drinking more rosé as far as I'm concerned. Kurtaki Retsina of Attiki is the wine I like to call the Greek wine even Greeks won't drink. Why is this, you ask? Well, Retsina starts out being made like other white wines, but later in the fermentation, small pieces of Aleppo pine rosin are added, and it's this pine rosin that gives Retsina its name as well as its unique flavor profile. Why would anyone taint their wine with pine rosin, you may be wondering? Well, the myth is that back in ancient times, a Greek city was under siege by the Romans, and the battle was going poorly for the Greeks. So they had a large store of white wine, and the Greeks allegedly said, "They may take our freedom, but they will not take our wine." So that's when they adulterated it with pine rosin. As events would have it, however, the Greeks did prevail in the battle, defeating the Romans. And of course, then it was time to celebrate with some wine. And of course, their wine now all had this pine rosin in it. People being people, they drank it anyway. And this set off a centuries-long enthusiasm for Retsina in Greece. But like I say, the Greek Americans I know won't drink it. I actually enjoy Retsina, but I'm rather disappointed that the pine content seems to be reduced every year. So, c'est la vie. From Macedonia comes Zinomavro. Now, this is Greece's premier red grape, and it typically shows characteristics of red fruit, sun-dried tomatoes, interestingly enough, Kalamata olives, and spices. From Hungary comes Egri Bikavir, which means the bull's blood of Eger. Now, this is a vintage-dated red wine that is made mainly from the Kadarka grape. And I've been drinking it for decades. It's actually widely available at a very good price point. But aside from Hungarians, it seems as almost no one knows about it. From Italy, Sicily's white Caricante is likened to cool climate Chardonnays. And the red Nerello Mascalese, which has earthy, herbaceous, and yet muscular notes, echoes some of the wines of Burgundy. Verdicchio is a white wine grape grown mainly in the Marquez region. The wines made from it have a subtle greenish hue. The wines are generally crisp and dry and have a light but elegant aroma and flavors of minerals and lemon. Verdicchio traditionally comes in an unusual green urn-shaped bottle, which resembles a clay amphora. In Portugal, port is traditionally made from the Sazão and Touriga Nacional grapes, but these can make nice table wines as well. These are juicy and unpretentious drink-me-now wines, particularly those that come from the Douro region, which stretches across north-central Spain and Portugal. Vinho Verde comes from Portugal's largest designated growing region. The wines made from it are slightly effervescent, and they can be red or white. They're fresh and fruity and are meant to be drunk while still young. South Africa is famous for its pinotage, but I'll tell you, it's an enthusiasm I just don't share. There's something about that wine that every selection I've tried has been completely off-putting. You might like it, though. It was cultivated there in 1925 as a cross between Pinot Noir and Cinsault. It typically produces deep red wines with flavors of smoke, bramble, and earth, and there are sometimes notes of bananas and tropical fruit, so you can see it's kind of a weird mix. There's a new category called orange wine. As you may know, rosé is made from red grapes that are fermented with a short amount of time with skin contact, and this imparts that pale pink color to the wine. But orange wines are actually made from white grapes, and these see extended skin contact, and this leads to colors anywhere from peach to orange to amber. So, since orange wine is a white wine made in the style of a red, there is at least the potential for plenty of flavor. For right now, at least, this is kind of a controversial category, so we will see if it catches on or not. I am a big fan of ice wine. This is a type of dessert wine that is produced from grapes that have frozen while still on the vine. The sugars and other dissolved solids in the grape don't freeze, but the water does, obviously, and this makes for a more concentrated juice. This is then pressed from the still frozen grapes in unheated wineries, often at night. The resulting juice is then fermented, and it yields a small amount of highly concentrated, very sweet wine with a high acidity. As you can imagine, the ice wine production is risky. A frost may not come to the vineyard at all before the grapes rot or are otherwise lost, and it requires the availability of a large enough labor force to pick the whole crop within a few hours, often at a moment's notice, as soon as the freeze sets in. Understandably, this low yield, both in the field and in the winery, makes them generally expensive, and they are almost always sold in 375 milliliter bottles. Canada is the largest producer, followed by Germany, and there are also a number of ice wine producers in the Niagara region of New York. So, moving on from grape varieties and grape-producing regions, we move on to oddball wines. And some of them Truly are. The Rappazzini winery of Gilroy, California, the self-proclaimed garlic capital of the world, makes 4 garlic-infused wines, 2 reds and 2 whites. There was a British wine expert who once braved one of the garlic wines, and he described it as, quote, an unholy alliance of flavors, unquote. Not a fan, apparently. Winemaker Ian Hutcheon runs Tremonte Vineyard in Chile, as well as an astronomy center there. And he's played off that theme for a number of his wines. He has installed a wave room at his observatory, which captures cosmic power from outer space that is then converted into audio. Now, he claims that these sound waves trigger a structural molecular change in the wine, which is stored in bottles and black oak barrels in the room. Hutchins said, the sound is eerie, and tourists state that they feel goose pimples and even energized as they sip their cosmic wines while huge images of Galileo, Newton, and Einstein observe them from the dark. In 2012, Hutcheon produced Sacrificio wine. Now, this is a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Carmenere, and Syrah, which he aged in French oak barrels for 12 months. But then, these were shipped halfway around the world to Australia, to the summit of Mount Tunka, and were left to the elements for an entire winter. People could try those wines, but to do so, they had to climb the mountain and locate the wine using a map. Hopefully, a journey worth the effort. Also in 2012, Hutcheon produced a Cabernet Sauvignon called Meteorito, which was aged with a chunk of a 4.5 billion-year-old meteorite placed into the barrel. Hutcheon said, the meteorite used in the creation of this wine came from the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and the idea behind submerging it in wine was to give everybody the opportunity to touch something from space, an extraterrestrial rock, the very history of the solar system, and feel it via a grand wine. In western Massachusetts, Vermont, Nova Scotia, and other spots in North America's so-called Maple Belt, predictably, farmers sometimes blend grape wines with maple syrup or even just ferment straight-up sap. The sweet result works well as a dessert wine. North Dakota's Maple River Winery makes a hard-to-find, semi-sweet pink wine, which is made from hand-picked white, lavender, and purple lilac blossoms, sugar, and water. And then, of course, there are wines that aren't made from grapes at all. If something has sugar in it, you can get alcohol out of it, and you can bet that someone has or will try that, people being who they are. If some pumpkin spiced booze appeals to you, California Fruit Wine Company adds pumpkin pie spices to fermented pumpkin juice, which creates a semi-sweet, fall-flavored beverage. It's very big with Harry Potter fans, apparently, because there's a whole, I've never read the books, but there's a whole recipe for pumpkin wine in those books. Omerto is made in Quebec, Canada, and it relies on a secret family recipe to make a pale gold wine from heirloom tomatoes. Dry and sweet versions of this aperitif wine are made, and they can be favorably compared to Sauvignon Blanc and white port. But, unfortunately, you'll have to go to Canada, Belgium, France, or Monaco to get it. They are not imported into the United States. Here at home, the Florida Orange Groves Winery makes a spicier tomato wine, which has been spiked with hot peppers. Schnebly Redlands Winery in Florida makes an avocado wine. They peel and pit the fruit, then blend the flesh with water, sugar, and yeast before fermentation in stainless steel vats. In addition to both dry and sweet all avocado wines, they do turn out blends made with coconut and guava. Apparently, Floridians like making oddball wines because how about a wine made from grapefruit juice? where the juice from pink grapefruit gets aged for several months after fermentation to mellow its tart edge. Now, for whatever the reason, I could not find a commercial producer, but there are a number of DIY recipes on the interwebs. And finally, if you're a fan of tropical fruit in your Chardonnay or Riesling, you could dive into an all-mango wine. Once again, several southern Florida wineries, as well as Island Mana on Kauai, Hawaii, make this sweet tipple. So, see, I told you it would be something completely different. If any of these wines appeal to you, there is a companion blog post over at winervana.com where you can read about these grape varieties and not have to rely on my awkward pronunciation to know what some of those are. There are also some links to producers. So, thank you for joining me for this podcast. I hope you found it to be informative. That's it for now. I've got to go drink some wine.
This has been Winervana. To learn more, visit us at www.winervana.com.
This is a production of Habanero